Okay, we are live.
Welcome to the Rockin' On podcast. My name is Matt. This is Greer,
Yeah, this is
and
no
you're about
longer
to.
a this is no longer a Star Citizen podcast. This is
Yeah,
just
we're
me.
so beyond that game.
This is
Prepare
just
to cry some nerd tears.
this is just me gushing about one single game, possibly an
Bleeding
hour.
saline from his orifices.
Oh man, like I said, dude. We're talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake for everyone. No, we're talking about the original. What a fake out would that be if I just
Yeah,
talked about
we
the
just got
original game?
around to playing Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 1.
Yep,
I was
classic game,
barely
pretty
able to get
good.
some RGB cords to and a TV that could adapt it. So,
I had to
no,
use
yeah,
my old TV from the 50s, so
dude.
it's on the
Okay,
smaller screen. It was great.
hey, but seriously, as like a table of contents note, I think here's a good way to play this. I have not bought Final Fantasy VII Remake yet.
Yep.
I've been saving myself a little bit, just try not to be trying to be casual about it. I'm also a little strapped at the moment,
Yeah.
but also I think it's supposed to come out for PC, potentially in a year, which is a long time to wait. But I don't know. I'm just kind of playing it soft at this point because I'm not
Honestly,
like a
I
huge.
in a year I'd probably buy it again for PC just for all the upscaled like textures. Because
That's dude. I know.
yeah,
I'm such a shallow person about it. But you said it a couple of times before, where you're like, you ignore graphics after 30 seconds,
yeah.
and I'm like, I couldn't. I was like, nope, you're wrong. Like I don't know. Like it's so stupid and so like small. But I just if I can glean more frame rate, more pixels, then that's by golly, that's what I'm gonna do. But anyway, yeah. So like, really, that's not a big issue. I can get through
Yeah.
a PS4 game,
I
like
mean,
no
like,
problem. But
you talk about graphical fidelity before we jump into everything. I love, but the game looks beautiful. But
yeah, right,
there are
dude.
moments
Yeah,
where you're like,
yeah.
okay, yeah, I'm on a PS4.
It's beautifully optimized for the PS4, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. The frame
That's
rate is actually super solid. I've had like one or two drops in random spots,
really
but other than that, like everything runs like I think
I
it's like 30 frames a second, not 60 frames a
I
second. But
I
like,
know Digital Foundry just came out with a video on it. I don't know if you follow that YouTube channel, but they have a great kind of technical analysis of a lot of video games, and so
yeah,
where PS4 can pick up slack versus where the Xbox can pick up slack is really interesting.
yeah,
But yeah, no, I definitely I'm sure Final Fantasy VII looks great on the
yeah.
PS4.
It's a. No, I'm honestly just surprised at how well it looks. Like, especially considering all they put in, like the amount of NPCs on the screen is always pretty
Yep.
massive. There's no like town with like five people in it where it says that's a town, quote unquote. But no, it's like people are everywhere. So it's
Yeah, you're
just
saying that. Yeah.
nuts. Like I'm playing this game like full spoiler, I am a shameless fanboy of Final Fantasy VII. So, uh, if you are looking for a like unbiased opinion, you're not going to find it here. I'm just going to say that right now.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I'm going to be
yeah.
honest. Like,
Go bark up your own tree, you
like
fascist.
I would like maybe in like 6 months I'll sit down and try to be objective and still probably love it because I'm just shameless like that about Final Fantasy VII.
So
So yeah,
that's the part I can play though. That was what I was going to say. Is I think
yeah,
I can service the devil's advocacy part. Not that I'm sincerely would think like I from what there's a couple positions I've read on the internet anyway that voice a couple opinions that I see as interesting.
okay,
Now, because you're a fan and because you in your experience has been really positive, you I want to hear you gush and then I can play the devil's advocate part and will say, "Well, Greer, what about this?"
yeah,
Or like, "Does this happen?" Or, you know,
yeah. As long as we're not into spoilers, because
no, no, no,
I
yeah.
believe I'm on actually the home stretch. I had like a final group of like side quests to do
Damn,
before I don't like
you
to the
put in
final
work.
mission. Dude, it's like 23 hours. I'm pretty sure by the time
You're
I'm
only
done, it's gonna be about 35, 40 hours into the
yeah.
game. So
Yeah, I've heard about that, I think.
yeah, and
Uh
honestly, like it's a fully fleshed out, content packed 35 to 40 hours. It's not like an open world game where like 10 of that hours is just walking.
yeah,
Yeah, so for me, like I don't know, I like it. Do I wish it
sure.
was longer? Do I wish the rest of the game was there? Of course. Like, I'm not gonna just
Yeah,
sit
no,
here and be
sure.
like, yeah, no, I can. No, the wait is
But I
even
mean,
worse
dude,
for the sequel for me now, though.
yeah.
It's gonna kill me.
Absolutely. Well, dude, coming off of Doom Eternal though, man, people were praising Doom Eternal for being great. They're talking about how great Resident Evil 3 is, both of which are dramatically shorter than that.
Yeah,
Doom Eternal is 12 hours, maybe. Resident Evil 3 is 5. and that's where that's kind of like, okay, that's light as hell to
Yeah.
me. Like when you can put in hundreds of hours into, like, dude, I'm on my second playthrough of The Witcher 3 right now. I've been telling you about a million times.
Yeah.
I'm about, I'm just 10% into the DLCs at this point, both the Heart of Stone and Blood and Wine. And
Nice.
they're, dude, I mean, it's just ridiculous. Each of those DLCs is like a whole nother game
Oh
of
yeah,
stuff.
I've heard.
It's great.
I had to jump into those.
Dude, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it'll blow your mind. I mean, it just,
Yeah.
all of your expectations completely dashed. Like I was coming off of, Skyrim and Oblivion DLC, which I think were like
They're pretty
kind of,
solid. They're okay.
right, yeah, yeah, and um, but anyway, yeah. So
Yeah. Me on like on the other end, like I jumped into this game and it's like way more. Like they did way more with it than I thought. Because again, like just for reference to people who aren't familiar with Final Fantasy VII, the Midgar, like the whole section, this gameplay section, of the Midgar section, is 4 to 5 hours in the original game, and they've managed to stretch it out into 35 to 40 hours. Now, you could say that's a Hobbit-like situation where they didn't need to do that, but I don't know. Like everything I played, everything I experienced, didn't really interfere with the original story beats at all. In fact, it made everything hit way harder when they did happen. Then again, I'm just a guy who loves like that kind of thing, who just loves like that kind of that exploration of story material. I like things being used that are in the background. Some people just like it being there to like imply things. I like it actually being used. So for me, everything that happened here, I was like, yes, 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 yes. And it's a constant. The amount of times I'm like sitting there and I did something, I'm like, just like a silly nerd and sitting on a couch, just like laughing to himself. That's like the first day I played. That was like me doing it for like 10 hours.
yeah,
I
yeah,
was like, yes, yes.
that's
And
fair.
yeah, like literally everything I've played so far, I haven't hated. And
Well, so you talk about it being an open world, but
it's not
um,
really. I'm gonna say it's not open world in the way that The Witcher 3 is. It's
yeah,
you get into sections like different towns, and you can do a lot of like side quests within those towns. And then again, they're not Witcher 3 level side quests. And it's very hard for them to match that. But for me,
mm,
there's enough story with them and enough like interesting challenge to what they do that I just enjoy it. Like some give you optional mini games to play, and a lot of them make you hunt down unique monsters. And
yeah,
some RPGs like unique monsters is it's just a monster with like a reskin and a little more health and damage and all that.
yeah,
This game, surprisingly enough, kicks my ass. Like
yeah,
whenever a unique
yeah.
monster shows up, like I'm like, cool. I guess I'll just treat him like everyone else. And no, the dude like almost wipes out my party repeatedly. I think I've died twice actually an entire game, but I've come close to dying way more than that. And I think
Yeah.
like it's the perfect for me. Like I know I'm jumping all over the place because I'm gushing everywhere, but like the combat for
I
me is like
yeah,
it's challenging, no, but not like hard. It's not Dark Souls. It's just like if you know what you're doing, it can feel
yeah,
super satisfying because you'll wipe groups in like an instant. If you
yeah,
don't know what
yeah.
you're doing, you'll suffer hard. Yeah,
I think it's like, I don't know. I've been thinking about it a lot, and just based on playing Monster Hunter and a couple other games, Doom, as being kind of like polar opposites. There, and like Dark Souls is another example of a an endurance fight, and so like that was my experience of the demo anyway.
yeah,
Is it feels definitely like and I think this is a tradition of like Eastern studios more anyway. Just like,
yeah.
Monster Hunter fight, it is just knockdown drag out for a long
Oh
time. And
yeah.
even though Dark Souls fights are pretty quick compared to other like JRPGs, for instance, like a Kingdom Hearts, like, oh my god, dude,
Oh,
the number of health bars on Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 2 is just mind boggling.
but dude, if you're a pro, you can kill him in like 20 seconds. I saw
Okay.
someone do it, and
Yeah.
I got
Yeah,
really angry.
it didn't take me, it took me longer. It
Yeah,
took me a lot longer than
I
20
got
seconds.
super angry when I watched that video
Yeah.
of the guy doing that. I was like, how dare you? How dare
Yeah.
you just make
So
my
so
accomplishment seem like nothing?
I think what makes it feel like so difficult is because it's such an endurance fight, and like eventually it's a real drain on your resources if you're not being careful. And
Yeah,
so like your competency really shows towards the end where you're just like you're just running on fumes,
yeah,
At
and
least that was my experience.
yeah, and that's what I like about this game is that it's the boss fights, especially. make me just like really get really tense. I haven't felt that way in any game in forever. And so
Yep.
like me playing this and like actually feeling tense about things that are happening and like gripping my controller because like I need to do this one thing or I'm like this person's going to die and I waste more resources to revive them and everything like that. Like I enjoy that a hell of a lot. And the fact that also the bosses are like they have phases to them, like a lot of like JRPGs do nowadays. But
And I'm
uh,
hearing, I want to know more a little bit about the bosses because I hear the bosses are pretty dope. What do you think about?
all the bosses I've fought so far are great. Uh, the guard scorpion is just a taste of things that are there. You run into a lot
Yeah.
of like, it's actually weird though because a lot of the bosses you'll fight are in the original game just normal enemies. Like they're you know for anyone watching spoilers and you didn't really know this one. Did you play the original?
No, no. I
Yeah,
mean, I've
yeah.
seen it
So
so much that it's
there's
like
there's an
almost.
enemy called the Hell House in the original, which is just a normal mob that you can kill and like he's harder than usual. Like you just fight him alone, but like you can kill him pretty quickly in the original game.
Yeah,
In this one, he's a full fledged just boss,
yeah.
and that I didn't expect at all. I was like, cool, all right, we're just gonna fight this monster, and then a house just shows up. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And it's just again, it's not like I think every boss fight in this game has taken me like 15 to 30 minutes each one, which
That's what me and
I
you
could
reckon,
I
man.
could yeah
Yeah, dude.
I could just suck. That could just be the issue. Like
Yeah, I mean,
that's entirely
you
possible.
probably obviously suck, but
Yeah.
no, just kidding.
But
No, dude.
yeah.
No, that's wild.
And before I got on to record this, I was fighting another boss, which like I was like, oh man, this thing is whooping my ass. Like, should I be fighting it right now? And turns out I was like 6 levels lower than I needed to be to fight it. I
Mm.
killed it, but that was like, whoa.
Oh, that was it, dude.
That dude was whooping my ass for so long. I was like, jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then yeah, but to bring it all back from the beginning, uh, like what I said before with the story, they hit all the story beats from before, like in the original game, but the
Yeah.
space in between them is extended. So like
Yeah.
I think in where you would stop by a town for like and it's like one screen in the original game that kind of scrolls up and down, but in reality it's just one screen you walk on, and it's like a pre-rendered background that you just slide on with a polygon essentially.
Yeah.
The original game, it's a full-fledged town now. Like you can wander into different alleyways. It really easy to find via map, but like you can wander in different alleyways. You can just listen to NPCs talk as you walk by. There's a lot of just like ambiance to there, where like every time you
Yeah.
walk by someone, they're always saying something. I'm surprised they did that much voice acting for it. And then you do a few quests for people, which take you to different areas. If you don't do them at all, you can skip to every single side quest in this game if you want,
Mm.
which would probably shorten the game to about 20 hours. But yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, just playing it like, and then like I find random things to do. Like when I was like in a bar, I found a dartboard and I played darts.
Oh yeah. No, I saw that mini game. Yeah.
I didn't realize I could just play darts because everyone listening, I had smoke screened myself so hard on this game that I didn't realize it was coming out until the day before. Like I had woken up that morning, I was like, oh, this game's out. I should probably
Yeah.
preload this so my PS4 doesn't tempt me on launch day. But yeah, and then the towns themselves are way bigger with a lot more characters just put into the story. Some people might not like that. They didn't like it when like Crisis Core did that kind of thing with the lore. But again, I always like a world that's fleshed out compared to just things in the background that you just infer about.
I know it's like contentious to say this, but I just don't see why you can't just ignore the stuff that you don't like, and just pretend like it just doesn't. I
Well,
mean,
I mean, some
in
people would probably argue that it breaks the pacing that they're used to in the
yeah,
original
no, no.
game,
Don't get me
and yeah,
wrong. Don't get me wrong. There's opportunities, but like I guess I specifically just mean Easter eggs and kind of like nostalgia nods in video games. Because
yeah,
one thing Dark Souls 3 gets ripped on a lot is how it's just a big nostalgia party and just a big like Easter egg hunt for all these like references to Dark Souls 1. And I'm like, how could you possibly think that's a bad thing. I'm like, dude, oh my god, this right here, man. Oh look, there's an asylum demon. It's just like a pile of them. There's like seven of them. Like I'm just kind of going through the whole level with a microscope.
Yeah.
People. So anyway, does it feel more like that? Is it just kind of giving you a little bit more minutia? Is that
Well, it's like I would rarely just put it plainly. Like it's how I imagined the world to be when I was playing it when I was little. Like
yeah
just like I didn't expect them to flesh it out to that extent. Which like a game like the game overall, I would say is more linear than open world. Again, it's just a long like it's not a long hallway like Final Fantasy 13. Oh God, no. But like it takes you along a set path. You hit a lot of points, and you can do things at certain points that make it feel more open. But it's not like a sprawling, massive city, which
yeah
would have been cool, but also wouldn't have made any sense in the context of the story. So I kind of understand it. And
yeah
again, some people would probably say what they added in now didn't make much context either because time issues and things like that. But from where it was explaining it to me, and the way it was portraying it to me, that like I bought into it pretty easily and accepted what they did, and everything new that showed up, I enjoyed just as much as the old stuff. Of course, the old stuff
yeah
hits me emotionally way harder because but the thing that they do really well is that they add things with the new stuff that make the older stuff hit you way harder than before. Like, uh, I don't want to go into too much, but like, the way they flesh out certain aspects of the story, make things that happen later, just like punch you in the gut way harder. Like,
mm,
for the first time in a while, I got sad at a video game. Like,
mm,
I just got bummed out. Like, oh God. Like, and this is coming from a guy who knew what was coming.
yeah
Yeah, so I was like,
dude.
oh man, like I just and it they of course like again they used their new material to flesh that out more and just kind of like now I had played a section recently where I guess like if there's one thing I would cut out from the game, which I wouldn't cut out anything, but if I had to cut out something, it would probably be that section. But other
Which
than
one?
that, like if there's a section where like you just go to like a different dungeon that seems totally unrelated for the moment.
Gotcha.
But like, I don't know, I had fun playing it, so whatever. Like, it was
Yeah.
actually giving off it was giving me like super actiony Resident Evil 2 vibes though.
Oh, nice.
When I was in it, like it was just because we were in like a laboratory setting. Spoilers,
Yeah.
but like yeah, like just like when they were doing, it, I was like, okay, this feels like Resident Evil 2 for some reason, but I know it's not. But it just felt that way. And yeah, overall, like everything new they've thrown at me, I loved. I don't know. I again, shameless fanboy here, so take everything I say with a grain of salt, people.
Mm.
Like I loved the combat. I
Who's
enjoy
your
how
uh, who's your favorite teammate so far, or do you have
it's
one, or do you
hard,
have to use
really.
them all? Is
I,
it is it kind of like they force you to use them all because it's so difficult?
no,
That's what it seemed like.
I think they force you to use them all. So I would like me being me, I would just use Cloud all the time because childhood. But
Yeah, but
and then as I was playing, I was like, oh no, I can't just use Cloud all the time. Like I have to switch
yeah,
between everyone, and especially because they do a really good job of making every character unique now. In the old game, yeah, certain characters hit harder with their melee weapons than others, but with the materia system, you can essentially craft anyone into a certain role, which is that's a really cool customizable like aspect to it. I don't like, and there's some limitations, of course, with natural stat growth. Like you could never make Aerith a melee fighter because that's just weird. But like
I love that, dude.
yeah, but like
How's it weird? Tifa uses her bare hands.
yeah, but they it made sense. Yeah, I know, right? But like it made sense with Aerith in this one, in that she just throws magic from her staff normally. I'm like, cool, I buy it, whatever. Like, like I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
But like,
No, no, that's fine. Yeah,
like every character that I've used has had something really good about them. Like Cloud, of course, is the up close and personal. Like can stagger them real hard, hits them real hard,
he
and
uses
he's
his sword the size of Texas, and
yeah, and then he more like just
asks
bludgeons.
questions later.
Yeah, he just bludgeons you to death with it essentially instead of like
Dude,
slicing you.
somebody had the real quick sidebar. Somebody had the nerve, and I hate this. This offends me. Somebody had the nerve in one of the reviews I was watching to say that the decals were a little bit much. The sparks and like the kind of the the details, like the
Why?
you know, and I'm like, how how dare you? You know,
Like,
like I'm over here. I wanted Saving Private Ryan level of just absolute. I wanted Bayhem. You know,
yeah,
like I want a Transformers movie meets Pearl Harbor. You know that like he was saying there were too many sparks flying out when you attack with your Buster Sword, and I just
man,
I wanted to turn it
that's a
off, man. I was like, you don't understand video games.
yeah, that's a really odd complaint to have. Like, that's like you're like looking for. Like, I'm not gonna brag on the guy. I never watched the review. I
Yeah,
probably
but
won't from what you said.
well, it's like
Like,
I get that it's just your preference, but
yeah,
I'm sorry, that's
yeah,
lame hole status. Like
but
I just love debris,
yeah,
burnout. You know, a burnout fan because there's just
yeah,
so many. Hey, can we get more sparks than actual polygons
yeah.
in this frame?
It's
Can we
great.
do
Like
that?
everything is, I don't know, visually everything I've done isn't hard to follow at all. Like
Yeah,
because of my own like I tunnel vision a lot, so I don't catch it when like because when enemies are doing a move that will hurt you really bad, the name of the move pops up over them, and you can just react to that. And
super fun.
me being a dumbass, it's like there's a character that just has like his move is like haymaker. I'm like sweet haymaker, and then he punches me for a fourth of my health. I'm like, oh, like what? Ow! But
Yeah,
yeah,
dude.
like just like that's a problem my fault. Like it's not hard to spot anything at all once I'm paying attention. So yeah, like
Yeah,
for me, like the combat, like if I want to just focus on one thing right now, is the combat
yeah,
is I love it. Like playing like full stop. Like I thought I enjoyed Final Fantasy 15's combat a lot. I know a lot of people didn't because it felt too actiony and a little like mindless at times, but I
yeah,
like that. And what they got here is essentially that, but like refined into a more. It's almost like a fighting game, if I had to put it
yeah.
similar to something.
That's
Yeah, some people, it's of course the ATB system from the old game, just put into a modern spin on it. But like, it feels like a fighting game where like you just attack a lot to build up your meter, then use your meter to do special shit. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
and when you're playing as Tifa, it feels just like a fighting game. Like you can do
for
because
sure.
all her moves combo into each other really well, so you can pop a super, hit him like 20 times, and pop another super, or she just decks him in the face and with extra damage from the other one. So
Yeah.
like
What I'm realizing about a lot of the games that I appreciate more is not necessarily about difficulty. Because somebody asked me about it the other day. They were looking for recommendations for games, and like I told him The Witcher and a couple others, but he said that basically he was playing through The Last of Us again on hard because I showed him Bloodborne back in the day, and it just changed him, you know. And he's like, yeah, it's like, and he made the joke saying, oh, since you showed me Bloodborne, am I doomed to play every game on hard from now on? And I actually think not necessarily. You know, I've been playing The Witcher on easy this most recent time because it's like for me it's more about the role play. And I'm like, well, Geralt wouldn't take more than two sword swings to kill a bandit. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like
yeah,
if Geralt's sword connects with a bandit, like it's a one hit pony. So
yeah,
anyway, so like that was just like my reasoning. And also if it's not refined to a certain level, like it is in a game like Skyrim or Assassin's Creed or Witcher, you know, it's like those are fine games, but the the difficulty is literally just a metric based on exponents, on ones and zeros, you know, on like
it's more health
on
and they hit harder.
yeah, right, exactly. So it's not refined and detailed. Whereas you get a game like Sekiro, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and then what I'm seeing refreshingly, it seems, in Final Fantasy VII Remake is that it just all it requires is not necessarily something all that difficult. It just requires a little bit more attention.
Yeah, like
And that simple variable to me anyway is like that it reinforces the whole aphorism of like you don't value what you don't earn. You know,
yeah,
when you make it just a little bit tense, suddenly it becomes so much more. It's just drugs when you end up.
yeah. Like I think
Going through it.
I've never gotten overly frustrated with any combat in this game. It's a mainly because if I ever like get hit really hard and die, like the two times I have died is entirely my fault. I wasn't paying attention, and I overestimated my capabilities in handling the enemy. Because
Hmm.
like some of the enemies are pretty smart. Like the AI is pretty good in that like flying enemies will fly out of your reach if you have a sword, or like the boss I just fought generates cover for himself and he's flying around, so you can't easily hit him with a ranged character.
Mm.
And I don't know if that was intentional or not, but for me that it seemed pretty intelligent of the boss to do that. And like just especially the troop, like the basic troop enemies, they all show up in different formations. Like grenadiers will show up in the back and bombard you from a distance, while the rider shields would jump up close to keep you pinned down while you keep pelted the grenades. And
Yeah.
you got to use your own team to have like the faster character Tifa to run behind them and beat the shit out of the grenadiers, while Cloud and like Barrett will deal with the riot shield users. And yeah, like things like that overall are just like. And of course, there are some moments in the game where it's just like, yeah, here's a horde of enemies. Go ahead, and cut through them like butter. And then I enjoy
Yeah.
that as well because power.
Yeah, dude. Don't rob me of that.
Yeah, because yeah, like, I think it's very balanced, and there's been like 3 boss fights I think where it's been a one-on-one duel, and I'm just a sucker for those.
Oh
So
yeah, man.
like, I'm me just
Like
doing
that.
that. I'm like, yes, give it to me. I want more of these. I want all of
Yeah.
it. Like,
Yeah.
don't stop. Yeah, and
Dude.
then I think yeah, just to yeah, again, like every character in the game has their own unique role to fill. With that can also be enhanced or expanded upon with materia. Materia in the game is just as important, if not more important, than the original game, because your abilities will turn the tide of battle depending how you did your loadout. Like, if you don't have all your elements covered, some fights will drag out. If you do have your all your elements covered, you can just wipe enemies pretty quickly. And then there's also the way that spells behave too. They don't just like pop and then do damage. Like the ice spell will hit the enemy initially, pause, and then explode, but it does a lot more damage than say a fire spell, which is just a single fireball.
Hmm.
The wind spell just appears, then you got pause for a second. So the enemy's super agile. You can't just hit them with magic and then call it a day. But if you have lightning just hits them instantly, and that's nice. But it also, like, again, doesn't hit as hard, I don't think, and a lot of enemies are resistant to lightning. There also happens to be a lot of machines in the game, which of course lightning destroys. So I get giddy when it happens. But yeah, like your loadout matters a lot. Like a lot of your preparation before a battle will change the tide. Great, which is really appealing for the Monster Hunter fan in me, because
Mm.
like I just like battle prep, like more and more. I don't know why. Like when sometimes prepping for the battle is more fun than actually doing the battle. And then like yeah, all the enemy encounters aren't too frequent either. Like, I'm sure some people have actually went out and grinded through the game. Like, they ran into areas where the enemies do respawn and grinded them out. And the only time I've quote unquote grinded is when I got lost in what I was doing. Like I couldn't find this one item, so I ran past this one spot like 10 times and killed the same group of enemy like 5 times. And that was me quote
Yeah.
unquote grinding. But like, apparently some people reach the end of the game at level 30. I'm like level 24. So
Mm.
we'll see how that goes. Maybe I'm gonna get my ass kicked. Who knows? But
No,
yeah, yeah. And then
I
like
can't imagine.
yeah, and honestly, the game doesn't have a hard mode. I would have played it if it did have a hard mode. I would have played the hard mode if it did have a hard mode, just because I gotta get the full
You're
experience.
you're a nerd.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
also heard
got it.
some people say the easy mode's way too easy though. From
Oh really?
yeah, because like I think I saw I didn't read the article because I was too busy playing the game, but it was just
Yeah.
saying that like Final Fantasy VII Remake's uh, easy mode is too drastically different from the normal mode.
Gotcha.
Of
Yeah.
course, I think I've read a little response to that where the guy admitted to enjoying himself super like a whole bunch with like normal mode, which is like the tense combat feel for the first 10 hours, but only rushed with easy mode to get to the ending so he could talk about it with his friends, and that makes me angry. But because I'm like, dude, just play the game. Like
Yeah.
I have like avoided forums like the bane of my existence because I'm like, nothing but this game is going to be spoiled for me.
Yeah.
Like they said the story was changed. Yeah, the story's been changed. I kind of expected it, but like, and
Yeah.
there have been numerous events within the game. Like, if you're a person who played the old games, it hints at something almost entirely new that could possibly happen. So
Say
that in
what?
yeah, like that in itself, like I don't know,
Like something big or something just like
Something
or
big,
not?
like something big that I could probably just maybe make the game storyline entirely different for all I know.
Like the big thing, or like just something less than the big thing? Wink, wink.
I don't. It could be the big thing. So
What?
yeah, I don't know yet.
No way. They're fucking with you, dude.
I don't
No,
know yet. Like,
they're lifting you up just to hurt you. That's what
dude,
they're trying to
it
do, man.
could.
You know they're doing
They,
it.
dude, they did that with me in the big thing. In the big thing that happens in this game, they did it to me because like I was playing through it, like maybe things will be different, and there was a thing that
Yeah,
was
dude.
different. One thing
It's
changed.
Oppum and running up the stairs and saving Private Ryan. You
Yeah.
want him to do it, man. You're yelling at him like, Oppum, run up, get up them stairs, Oppum, but he won't do it.
Yeah, it's like me. It's like one thing did happen that was different, and it happened at the very beginning of the sequence of events, and that's what made me like, maybe they changed it. And I was like, especially with all
Yeah.
the new stuff they added, and then in the process of it going through it, I wanted it to be changed so hard that when it didn't, it hurt me.
Dude, that's what I mean, man. You're teeing yourself up for a brutal
I know.
awakening, man.
I was like,
I
and
can't imagine
yeah,
change the big stuff, you know. If they did, they'd be like, I mean, I like they do what they want. It's not if
again,
they can find a reason. I trust
yeah,
Katase, I guess, but
yeah. Any idea can be great as long as the execution's right. Now, if they change that one big thing, the rest of the story wouldn't make much sense. So I don't know if they're going to do
yeah.
that. But
I will say, dude,
yeah,
I will say what I do think is that you and I, as much as like I can criticize and analyze and have my own opinion about all the things, I I wish we all just gave less of a flying fuck about what you and I and the rest of the audience and the consumers think about the whole thing. Like the thing that they do well, I feel like in Eastern devs, like the Japanese devs, are um, are just trusting the leadership and the teams to produce.
yeah,
If that makes sense, you know what I
that
mean?
yeah
Like,
that is key because a lot of the Western development, I think, especially if we're looking at Valve, it's like super free form, and
yeah,
that sounds cool in theory, but for a video game, you need a head that manages the
yeah,
direction of a video game.
like,
Like
yeah, right.
Final Fantasy 15 suffered from this as well, where it was under Nomura's care for a while, and then he just couldn't get the product out, so they switched it to oh my god, I'm drawing a blank at what the dude's name was.
Oh,
Who,
real quick though, he still wants to make versus 13. I heard
oh yeah,
Nomura does.
he's probably gonna just make it in the Kingdom Hearts universe though, which is hilarious. Like he's like, "All right, fine, I can't
What?
do it with Final Fantasy. I'll just make it with Kingdom Hearts." But
That's
yeah,
so weird.
yeah, but like, man, who was it? Tabata. Tabata handled the rest of the Final Fantasy 15 development, and the game came out way different than what Nomura had envisioned.
You said your favorite kind of bread is ciabatta. Is that what you said?
That's why I said no. Tabata is the director of
I'm sorry.
yeah
That was
the final director of Final Fantasy 15, who has left at Square Enix at this point, I think. And I enjoyed Final Fantasy 15. Like there are some lows to that game that I'm kind of like, not my favorite. But I think it was like the beginning of Square Enix turning more towards, especially with the dialogue and storytelling, towards like character driven stuff. Because a lot of Final Fantasies, at least like the early ones, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they have character moments, but it's about the big sweeping like save the world plots, save the universe after you save the world plots things. So like
hmm.
for me, like I think them condensing everything down, like 15 and 7 do get to that point where you're saving the world. That's about to end. I'm not gonna like stop there, but like they take
Yeah,
way more time to get there because you're exploring everyone's personal stories more, and like where 15 explores Noctis a lot, uh, 7 explores all the characters with that same attention to detail, without all the open world emptiness of 15. So therefore, like the 35 to 40 hours that the game's probably going to run for me is just filled with content that means stuff to me. Like,
yeah. I'm realizing more and more that open world is not necessarily a good
yeah,
thing. You know, it's like, uh, you know, it's
it's about like it's about what's in your sandwich, not how big the sandwich is.
yeah, right. And so like, yeah, Skyrim is a good ass sandwich for a different reason than it's an open world. Whereas a lot of people interpreted that as being like, oh, we can make an open world. You know, it's like, dude, I'm looking at you, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, like The Witcher 3 and Assassin's Creed Odyssey, like somebody, dude, my buddy texted me because he's an Assassin's Creed fan, which is like fine, dude. I love Black Flag. I think Assassin's Creed 2 is a great game. And there's been a couple that are like really good in recent years. Like, won't deny that. I think Origins is pretty good, but I think Odyssey is dog shit trash. It's bad, and not it's just mediocre, right? I guess I shouldn't say bad.
It's an
It's
Ubisoft
just
game.
yeah, dude. It's
Yeah,
the same as it is in level 10 as it is in level 40,
yeah,
right? It's just like the same shit, just different numbers. It's the writing is absolutely god fucking awful, and the gameplay is just passable and
yeah,
average,
yeah,
and so like he was telling me that, oh yeah, no, I heard that Odyssey was the best Assassin's Creed game in the chronology, and I'm like, dude, that is a damnable lie. Like that's
yeah.
just I don't know. You tell me, show me an Assassin's Creed fan who says that Odyssey is the best in the series. I just don't buy that. Like it just doesn't seem true to me. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's my
But
my
yeah, like
controversial opinion.
I don't know how to. It's a linear game, but there's like moments of like just meat within it that like you can enjoy. So I'm not
Yeah.
really sure what that is. Like I don't know what kind of game style that is, but I love it. Like I enjoyed it. When the moment I got to Wall Market, which whenever you play the game when you get there, you'll know what it is. But whenever I got to
Yeah.
that moment, like again, it was like a tall singular screen and like pre-rendered background in the original game.
Yeah.
Now it's like high like nightlife. Like you walk
No, I
there,
know what
yeah,
you're
yeah,
talking about. Yeah, with like almost look like a. To me, I always thought it was a casino, but maybe I was
yeah.
like
It gives casino vibes, but like it's basically just like it's a combining.
it's like a
Uh,
red light district or something like that, or like
it's a red light district, a market district, and an entertainment district all in one,
yeah.
and really good. This place is full of innuendos though, and I'm surprised that there's actually that many innuendos in the game
How do
because
how do you how do you mean? Besides Cloud wearing a dress, obviously.
the process of Cloud getting a dress is
It's
like
all
that.
just like ooh, kabuki theater, like
Yeah, you're like, what is going on? But like,
yeah.
there's a I think there's a moment where like like well, I don't know if you care about me like spoiling this one little detail for you. It's like a lady in like a bee outfit
Yeah.
who's really you know revealing outfit.
A good wholesome stripper.
Yeah, a
You
good
could
wholesome
say
stripper who's like
it.
dancing in front of a dude,
A
right?
stripper with a heart of gold.
Yeah, but like this but this outfit has a bee like behind attached to it, like almost like a rabbit tail, but just large and with like a stinger. And
Yeah.
it's like you walk into the room and a dude's like staring at her, shaking her ass essentially. But
Nice.
you go up to the dude and talking to he's drunk off his ass, so he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. The lady is like, yeah, what shape am I drawing with this? And you're essentially just staring at her ass make a shape with
And you have to guess what shape
with
her ass is making.
yeah with the singers like, the angle isn't directly on her ass but like in character you're just essentially staring at her ass.
Nice.
And I'm like
Yeah.
I love it.
It's cheap.
Like
It's cheap.
I'm surprised that this is in here but like
Yeah, no, right. This got through HR or whatever.
and I guessed right, yeah.
You guessed right.
Yeah, I got the right answer but yeah. And then there's another scene that's just like this it has like all the dialogue of a porno but in a different context and it makes me laugh especially because like what happens afterwards just made me like crack up so hard. Yeah, I'm trying to be vague because I don't want like I want all these moments to just hit you when you actually play the game. So
Mm,
yeah, so I'm being vague right now especially to all our viewers but yeah, that place was it gave me like 90s PS1 era vibes just translated to a more modern sense,
nice.
aka the dialogue isn't garbage. Like all the characters within Wall Market are all really interesting and cool to talk to. One
Yeah,
dude is essentially just Sam Elliott.
nice.
He has the voice and everything. It's crazy. Like I don't know if they actually got Sam Elliott to do it, like, but it's there. But yeah, yeah. And overall, like, yeah, they did that with every single town too. So thumbs up for me on that one. Yeah, I think overall, like, I just super love the game and where it's going, and that's just how I'm gonna stick to it. I have read nothing else about it. I'm sure there's plenty of people on the internet who have way different opinions than I do, and that's okay. So,
Yeah.
yeah. What do you? I mean, what have you heard that's like been knocked against it so far?
Let's see. Well, it's. I'm trying to think of stuff we haven't covered already, but because on the one hand, it's like
I've heard the
it's
ending is actually controversial to a lot of people.
yeah, yeah.
I haven't seen the ending, and I'm not gonna look up anything on the ending, but I've heard
Oh
it
no, you
is.
shouldn't.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've
but
heard it too, but I don't want to look it up either because
yeah,
I'm kind of. But at the same time, so I have a question that I think is apt for you,
yep.
and that is, uh, do you think as a guy who has a lot of experience with the original, right? Obviously, you appreciate all the detail and expanding on all the stuff. But do you think that translates well to a first time player? Like, so I watched through a lot of Final Fantasy VII, but never really experienced it myself, and don't know the minute details. Big fan of Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. I even played a little bit of Dirge of Cerberus
Oh man,
and a
that
little bit
game.
of that was badass. I don't care
I
what anybody
that
says.
that
I love
game
that thing.
was fun to play, but man, that story. I can't even defend the story of
Oh
Dirge of
yeah, no, no,
Cerberus. Like, what the
no, no.
fuck?
That's not why we played Dirge of
Yeah.
Cerberus. No, but and then I played a little bit of Crisis Core, but didn't finish it. So I like Final Fantasy VII. Oh, and really, where I get most of my Final Fantasy cred is through Kingdom Hearts, actually, because defending Hollow Bastion with Cloud in Kingdom Hearts 2 is it's a big moment.
Yep.
Big moment.
Thrilling.
So do you think this game is tailored for like would I appreciate this game as much as you do, for instance?
I would say. Oddly enough, no. I would say like fans who are. I want to say open-minded because it makes me feel like I'm telling everyone who doesn't like it closed-minded. And that's like fans who are like a little more loose with like how much investment, how much like they want to see from the developers would be the ones that enjoy this game the most. You know, fans that only wanted the original might be a little disappointed. I can see that happening, and they're welcome to that opinion. And then to new people, I think they just enjoy it as a really good game. Like as a person who played the first game, for me, like I can tell what they put more detail into, like answer what certain events are different, how that affects the overall story, and for me, that's like another level of like the fact that I had that meta knowledge gives me another like level of appreciation to what comes later because sometimes it gives the opportunity for the game to like properly subvert my expectations.
Mm.
Yeah, and not just throw a trope at me then subvert it with like bleh, oh subversion. No, it's a proper like they set it up, but when you think it's going this way, they said do it else. Like it's to the point where if they do the thing that originally happened, it's like in that moment again when I was a kid. If that makes any sense. Like
Oh,
yeah,
so they're lulling you into a false sense of security, you think?
yeah, and then
Yeah.
doing it, or they just do it something different, which surprises me too. So I think for me, who is like, I love the first game. The first game story will always be a key source of my own inspiration for my writing. But
Oh, dude,
yeah,
yeah.
for this though, it's like I just came in with like a loose like expectation that they're probably gonna change some things in the story, and when there's things that are changing, and I'm like maybe they'll change this, and then like when they don't, it hits me because I wanted it to change, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like it's for me that little microcosm of just like fluctuating expectations and knowing what's gonna happen, but it's almost like a Halo Reach situation with more hope.
Oh, yeah, dude, yeah.
It's
No,
like
that's what I mean. It's a Titanic. There's no winning. Like
yeah,
even when you can watch Titanic right now, and you're like, but maybe just maybe not as many people die this time.
yeah.
Maybe they have more boats. You know, just like one. Like again, I think. Well, I'm because we speculated a little bit one time on when we think the big thing is going to happen.
Oh yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I'm talking about,
yeah.
right? And maybe I don't know
I
if
think yeah, it
this
wasn't.
is a slippery slope.
We didn't record it, but like yeah, when we were talking about I was guessing that it probably happened at the end of the second game if there's three games or in the
Yeah,
middle.
right.
Yeah,
But
I'm
could you imagine the sheer stress and anxiety that they would build if you
dude.
got to the end of the second game and that thing had not happened,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
particular plot point? So you'd have to go into the third game
yeah. Blind.
completely just absolute, like spending the whole game worried,
Yeah,
just agonizing
and
about when the thing happens
that's
or
where
when.
like again, like I'm like playing this, and maybe the ending will ruin it for me because I enjoy what they're doing right now, but like if they manage to do that in that thing where I don't know what's going to change, but I want things to change that may change, and then
Yeah,
keep up this quality of writing with it.
yeah.
I'm going to go insane in the second game where it's like, is it going to happen? Is it maybe
Yeah,
not?
yeah.
Maybe if I'm strong enough
Yeah.
at this one level, I can do it better. I don't know. So
That's gonna be delicate, I really am curious to see how they do it.
yeah, and
But
they've done a they. I mean, playing this game, I thought I was gonna just have a trip down memory lane. That's my only expectation for this game, with a few differences. I did not expect this game to be as good as it is right now. Like, it feels like it's too good. Like I'm like, how? Like, how is it this good? Granted, they took forever to make it, so it should be
I'm
this
really
good. But
I really am curious to see what your end game experience looks like. Yeah,
yeah,
because I heard it's controversial, but I have no idea what the details are. So
yeah, I don't know what the details
yeah,
are.
I'm interested.
I'm just gonna keep an open mind, as I've been
Yeah.
trying to do. I've enjoyed everything doing so far, and I'm not gonna have blind faith. Maybe they'll fuck it up. Like maybe they will, and maybe I'll be outraged about it. But I can't discount the fact that the
But that's
game
what I
so
mean, man.
far
Dude,
has
how
been
are they?
great.
Yeah,
So
right, right. It's like let's not, good faith over here. Like it
like
even if this
as
game, even if you decide if you change your mind somehow and like by the end of the game you're like, well, it's an 8. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
I would take a solid 8 with the potential of going to a 9 or 10 in the second and third games.
hmm
Like in fact, like this being the first game in an IP, like in a new trilogy, in a new in a
yeah,
in the remake canon. I'm excited to the potential for the next game. In the
yeah.
same way that I'm excited for the next Spider-Man game or the next God of War game type thing.
Well, it's like I'm playing this game before, like when they first announced it was gonna be a multi-installment series. I was disappointed. I just wanted the full game.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
but
Yeah, yeah, me too.
seeing what they've done with the world, I totally understand why they couldn't just make it one game because that game would
Yeah,
be,
yeah.
I'm going to say 250 gigabytes. But
Hmm.
that's probably underselling it a little bit because the actual world of Final Fantasy VII is huge. And if they want to give the amount of detail they gave the like Midgar to the rest of the
Yeah,
world, they're gonna need some heavier like new next con. It's gonna be a next
that's
gen
what I was gonna
title.
say.
Like,
That's what I
yeah,
was gonna say because it's such an interesting time for them to choose to do it because now, especially with the second game and the third game potentially, they're gonna have so much more power.
hmm
And so theoretically, like even this game,
yeah,
the criticisms I'm getting a lot are like, that the levels are a little bit more simple and it's not as open world as you think it is. It's vast and like long and stuff like that. But at the same time,
it's it feels like Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy X was super like it was linear, but the worlds and zones were so big that
yeah,
it almost didn't matter. Like,
yeah, right.
like the maps were always like one or two branching paths that have like treasure at the end or something like that. But
Yeah,
like I don't know, like Final Fantasy VII Remake has the exact same map design. So did the original.
yeah, right. Well, and
So
that's what I mean.
yeah,
If they wanted to open it up, and I'm guessing also later, like Final Fantasy VII, if I remember right, opens up a lot after
the
Midgar.
moment you leave Midgar,
So
so if they want to do all their open world stuff, next gen would be their target. Like I find that the Midgar section of Final Fantasy VII, like beyond like the middle stuff of the actual game, has always been the most memorable stuff to me. So this stuff is hitting me super hard right now. So the fact that they just took that part out and then flushed it out to what it is now and gave it the like it's a linear but like content filled experience. I was like, man, this is a great swan song for the PS4 because this is where you send off the console, and
yeah,
it makes me happy playing it. So yeah, like the fact that they did that gives me hope that maybe when you get into the open world aspect of the game, it'll be something totally different because it can't just be Final Fantasy 15 where there's one region that's big
yeah,
and then everything else is linear. Like there's an open world map that they have to follow, and they gotta make that scale feel big without being too ridiculous. Maybe they'll probably add fast travel in or something. And
Well, they got the ship, right? The airship. Didn't that come out
yeah,
after?
no, you don't get the airship in Final Fantasy VII until way into the game though. So
Oh,
unless they
really?
change
Okay.
that, like I'm pretty
Well, but
sure,
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like, and then even in Final Fantasy VII, like you only have half the original cast in this game
yeah, you
of the
don't even. I
party.
haven't seen you, or well, I shouldn't.
I haven't seen like I've only seen Cloud, Barrett, Tifa, and Aerith. Those four.
And Jesse and all them.
Yeah, and Jesse and all them. But they're not like party
Yeah,
members, but they do things.
yeah,
So,
I got
but yeah,
you.
like but like I've only seen them, and because it's only the four of them, probably throughout the entire game, it's super fleshed out with what their abilities can do, and I enjoy that. So maybe they'll have better time to work on the other characters' abilities in that same manner. Like
Yeah,
I just want to see the games have this sheer level of detail as like Midgar does right now. Is it asking for too much? Maybe, because there's a lot of locations in Final Fantasy VII, so I might be asking for way too much. But at the same time, they did it with this game. So
yeah,
I know it's possible. Like, and I just want to see that just in glorious HD. Make it VR for all I care, and I'll just live in that world. Like, so, and then, how do we get on this part? I feel like I just went off into a long tangent.
you sure did, man.
Yeah,
You're gushing,
yeah, and
but
then
you know,
yeah.
very,
So
very good.
everything is good so far. I could be disappointed by the ending. Who knows? But as long as I don't know, as long as like unless it pulls a Game of Thrones on me, where it makes almost the entire thing seem pointless, then I'll be really super disappointed. I hope it doesn't do that. Like that make me
I
really sad. But like as long as it doesn't do that, I think I'll come out just aces.
I'm pulling for you, man.
Yeah, like, I don't know. You should have played it so we can talk about it in plot detail and spoil it for everyone.
I'll probably cave, dude. I'm telling you, I'll cave in the next week or so. You know,
Yeah,
if I would
especially
get bored.
everyone's in freaking quarantine. I was like, what a
Yeah,
perfect
right.
time to play this.
Yeah, I know, man. It's not gonna last, but
Yeah, so it's real fun. And then I don't know, like, was it like so? Has anyone had made any complaints about the combat system actually? Because that's a huge contention point in a lot of Final Fantasy like forums of like
I I mean, not not in terms of negative press that I can really muster, unless you know something that I don't. You
not
know,
really. Some people
I
just
hear a lot
wanted
of positivity
some
about it,
people just
but
wanted the original ATB system where everyone stands still and whacks at each other. And
yeah.
eh,
See, I don't understand
eh,
why anybody would want that. You
I,
know, I get that people are purists and shit
yeah,
like that, but dude, you got to get with the times.
yeah, to
Like
stick with
no
that,
games are made like
to
that
stick
anymore.
with that vision is really like no. And then what people don't understand though is that when you play normal mode, it's essentially that because like a lot of moves you can dodge roll, quote unquote, like you can
Yeah,
avoid basic attacks and stuff like that. But for the big hitters, you can block some, you can't block some, you can dodge some, you can just like try and avoid windows and like that. But there's a ebb and flow to the combat where they unleash these moves. They don't spam them. There's moments they unleash them and you have to deal with the consequences afterwards depending how well you did. That just feels like a modern version of the ATB battle system where like
yeah,
you're getting hit a lot, like way more than you probably should in real life. Like Cloud takes 20 bullets to the face on the by the minute. Like
yeah,
so yeah, you're getting hit way more than you should be in real life, but you're also dishing out major damage to them. So there's a tug of war there that feels very reminiscent of the old ATB system. Final Fantasy 15 just went full action, and I can see why people didn't really like that because there's a until they put character switching in, they had to patch that in. Until they did that, there was very little element of strategy to that game. This one
yeah.
though, it's there from the beginning, and everything's been tailored to deal with that. And I think that is plays into a really big, like strong, like plus to why the combat in the game is so good. Yeah. Again, I could just be some justifying a combat system that could be mediocre to everyone else, for all I know.
No.
I
I
have
think
read zero impressions so far, so
no. I haven't heard really much of any criticisms for the combat system, especially. I think that's one of its biggest strengths is it's just very detailed and refined. Now,
now I
like
hope Square Enix just sticks with this combat system because they have a super bad habit of like doing things where like, oh yeah, I know that worked really well and everyone loved it, but did you see what we did with this new combat system for this one other game we did? And it's like, dude, like stick
yeah,
to a system. I understand you want to be unique with every single Final Fantasy, but everyone loves this one. You should have just done it more and like reflavored a few things. Like,
yeah. Well,
not
I will.
what's up.
I know it's not necessarily for me. Like I part of like the level design issue and some other parts of it is like there's no jump button, for instance, right?
Oh, yep, yep,
Which it definitely doesn't need because it's like it's simple and elegant and I think if you added more like it's like for instance in The Witcher 3 you can jump. But why? Like it doesn't do anything. It really has almost no value.
dude. To get over fences.
Yeah, right. And like there's a couple times where you have these really half-ass platforming sections and you're kind of like, okay, well, whatever. So on the one hand, I would really just selfishly love if there was more of just a little bit more of like the platforming element, giving Cloud some like acrobatic,
Yeah,
like something else to do besides fight his way through a level. But if you can't pat your stomach and tap your head at the same time, like
just
you
focus
should
on one thing.
definitely put
Yeah,
all your eggs in the combat
yeah,
basket and like and so in that way it actually I'm sure it feels great.
yeah.
It feels fun. I just selfishly have been playing a lot of
I think.
Sekiro. And
Oh yeah, yeah. I gotcha. There's really a lot of I guess level specific interaction in the stages. So
yeah,
like things you do just in that level that like feel unique to it, which breaks up the monotony of just slapping things with your sword.
yeah,
Because let's be honest, that sword you're just slapping things. You're not slashing things.
yeah.
you're
You're just hitting them with
yeah.
about 1,000,000 pounds of steel.
And I love every second of it. I only use the Buster Sword. I like because like the combat system is that like you can use a weapon and learn its skill and then switch back to your other weapon if you wanted to. And for me, it's like I had the Buster Sword on at all times. I'll like
Mm.
grab the other weapon, go to like one combat zone, and just spam the attack until I learn it, and then switch back. I'm like, this isn't immersive at all, but I want the sword. And
No, dude.
yeah, like that aspect is really cool. But the levels all feel really unique. They're not just levels where you run across and like whack things. Most of it is. I'm not gonna lie, but like there's enough shake up with like mechanics that I feel are good enough to break up like again just attacking things. Like uh, one area has you manipulating things in a certain way to open other areas that you could just ignore entirely, or like if you just didn't spot this one thing and
Yeah.
you came to like I didn't spot this one thing. I didn't spot this one thing that like a person just mentioned as they walked by it. And I was like, cool, whatever. I guess my mind went blank for some reason that moment, and then I found it later, and then I realized, oh yeah, she was talking about this important magic item I could have missed if I wasn't.
Mhm.
But I just stumbled upon randomly. But yeah, and
Yeah.
it, I think like a huge thing that I was talking to a buddy of mine who his criticism of like a game, he was talking about Watch Dogs, where he's like, yeah, dude, you just do like the same thing over and over again. It's just a cycle of you doing the same thing over and over again. And then at that moment, I was kind of like, isn't it just all video games? You just do one cycle of the thing over and over and over again. Like it's
Yeah.
not a very complicated process. Like you just do a cycle of something over again. What matters is the context in which you're doing it. I think it matters really big.
Well,
But yeah,
a good example to reinforce your point is like Mario literally has two buttons,
yeah,
or three maybe. Like there's the crouch button, the jump button. I don't even think there's a punch. It's like and there's barely some others. And so the idea is that how does a game like Mario continue to keep it fresh just by something so simple and that's the magic is like it doesn't take many sort of widgets to mess with. You only need a couple different widgets to just like put in different places and piece together before you have a really complex, and diverse uh system, I think.
Yeah,
And so like I'm not, especially for how good the feedback feels in the combat in that game. It's like what I realize even about traversal and stuff like that is it doesn't always do it for you. It's not going to get you there. Like, why waste your time? Assassin's Creed Odyssey, again, being
I
dog shit trash, like I said before, you waste your time with these side quests that are just nonsense, and it's just like a manufactured uh, sense of like content.
hmm
You know, it just drags out where you're like, it's not all that well written or refined. It just takes for freaking ever and is not all that rewarding. And it's like, why do that when you could be having a detailed, refined experience minute to minute where you're doing something that's just fun? It doesn't have to be more complicated than that.
yeah. I will say there are moments in this game where I do need to suspend my disbelief of certain like roadblocks to your character's progress. Where I'm like, I see a barrier, and it's like, yeah, no, Cloud can just jump over
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
like this really shouldn't be hindering him at all, but I will allow it because the game is fun.
I guess
But
that's what my problem is.
yeah,
In
yeah,
Final Fantasy Advent Children, Cloud flies.
yeah.
It's like, explain that one to me,
And
guys.
he does some of that stuff in this game. so,
Yeah, yeah,
so I'm
right.
like,
Yeah, I'm
I'm
sure.
kind of like, you could just jump over this, but I will allow it because I love the game. But like
Yeah.
in my mind, that's like the critical part of me is
It's
like,
like,
yeah, no, like
he's running awful slow for a super soldier.
yeah, it's like I wish they would put more like plot reasons. Like maybe there's a ghostly barrier that's blocking you, and they do that in some parts of the game. So it's like, why couldn't you just use that more? But it felt too Deus Ex Machina, I guess, if they did that all the time. But like, yeah, I'm like, there's a moment where like I'm standing in a gap that I could jump,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, we can't go further. I'm like, that's bullshit.
Well, that's what I guess I don't remember a single game where I saw some manufactured bullshit, it because it's in everything. It's in so many linear games like that where it's like, hey, here's a random half-assed excuse to show you that you're not allowed to go here,
Yeah.
and it's like I at the same time the openness and the is the traversal that I want. It's like I want to experience Cloud where he can just like fly when he wants to fly.
Yeah. Like seriously, they would just kick off the ground in like 50
and
feet in the air.
and don't pretend like I don't have an answer for that. It's like I am not a designer. Like
Yeah.
I understand why those are. It's like I'm not naive. I get it. And in fact, this is probably the best possible version of that, where it's like, dude, you don't understand. Like what you're talking about would look so stupid.
Yeah, like it would look super silly if I could just do that in the video game, but and no, he does it in battle. So what? Yeah, like that's one thing. Where I'm like, the dude's like 50 feet in the air. He'll jump up to meet him, depending on the enemy.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I could just jump this gap, but I will allow it because sometimes, like, as much as I enjoy the role play, sometimes I do enjoy just being carried along in a story.
No, that's
Like,
true.
yeah, so
Yeah.
like I just kind of like, okay, just move with the story and see where it takes you.
Well, that's what I'm learning again with The Witcher is like 90. I don't. I think it's like a 90-10% of like combat to everything else. So
Yeah,
like 90% of the game is you like watching a cutscene, making a decision in some play mechanic, running to a destination, experiencing everything that's not combat. And then like I feel like only about 10% of that game is combat, and even then it's not the part that's most memorable,
yeah,
if that makes sense. Like which is mind blowing when you're talking about like why that's yeah I wouldn't play The Witcher if it didn't have combat, and yet at the same time it plays such a minor part I feel like in that game.
yeah. And again,
So
it's always the context in which you're doing something.
yeah,
Like the in Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's always changing. So therefore, and the enemy types are varied enough that like it just works for me. So I enjoy it. But like context for me is always super important. Like if I go into a cave to kill a bandit, that's cool. But if I go into the cave to kill a bandit who has slaughtered this one man's family, and is on the run and could possibly do it again, that gives me more investment in
Mhm.
what I'm doing. I'm doing the exact same thing either way, but the why in which I'm doing it is good. I know some people don't think that story is all that important in games. I think they're wrong, but
I think, dude, metafiction, yeah,
yeah, but like
it's all
yeah,
about.
especially like for me in this game too. That like for me, just seeing what else they added is the biggest highlight for me. Yeah, the emotional moments are huge for me, but like I'm also mainly looking forward to seeing what they put in. Like some
Yeah.
areas that they've added context to were just one-offs in the original game. Like there's an entire dungeon-like area that you can clear in 10 minutes in the original game. In this game, it takes you 2 hours now, and
Right.
I don't know. Like I playing it, I was like, all right, cool. Like I enjoy this, and it gives a feasible reason as to why this would hinder their progress as opposed to the other one. So, it like scale wise, I think this game handles time and scale really well.
Mhm.
Yeah, so like things are all I mean, when anything happens, it's believable, not just like, hey, I know, you know, 10 minutes ago you just did this thing, but now the world's ending. It's like, what?
Mhm.
But like for me, it's the world just feels super lived in. Yeah, that's like the one thing that gets me every time I'm walking around the world is like the world itself feels like it's living. Like it
Yeah.
reacts to what happens in the plot, and because it's not open world, they can do that more whenever you go back to an area. Like things have changed according to what happened in other sections of the game. Like different areas may be open or closed. Uh,
Yeah.
there's like certain times, like certain points of the game take place during the day. Some places take place during the night. There's not a day and night cycle. It just happens with the story. But
Gotcha.
like that was probably the hugest thing for me was when I saw daylight for the first time in Midgar. Because for some reason
Hmm.
in my mind, I always thought like the section they were in just never had daylight. It was eternally cyberpunk.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. That
Like
makes sense.
everything was just dark all the time because the original maps were dark all the time.
All the time.
I
Yeah.
could be wrong. I could be wrong. So it's been a while since I played it, but yeah, like there was
No. No. I think I remember
yeah,
that though.
it was dark all the time. And then I just took a step outside and I saw light hit me in the face, and then there's like that initial glare, and then everything clears. The game does this great, by the way. It's like when it reveals an environment, like it's always like either shadows that fade out and reveal an area, or like a glare light that just dissipates, and then you just see everything.
Mm.
Like I just took a step outside the door, and for I just like stood there for a minute, like holy shit, there's daylight.
Mm.
Like the structure that I thought I remembered from the original game, totally wrong. Like there's ports where light does come in and you can see the sky. I thought you could never see the sky initially, but like yeah, here you can just see the sky happen, and yeah, like that alone just like maybe go, oh, I love this game. It's just moments like that where like I'm standing on a peak of something and I see the rest of the world or what could be the rest of the world that I'm like, oh yeah, now I'm in it. It's like a Breath
Yeah.
of the
No.
Wild moment, but you know you're now standing at the balcony of a building, not on the peak of a mountain.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I just don't. Oh my god. That's great.
Maybe I will have more tempered, you know, views on this as time goes on. But for right now, this has been the first game in forever that's actually gotten me into playing it for multiple reasons. Like some games are really good with their combat, so I play that for a little bit. Monster Hunter, I don't play for the story at all. but,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Not even a little bit.
die a little bit. The handler is my arch nemesis. If she just brought if
Yeah.
she brought a
She should be the
weapon, I
last
wouldn't
boss.
care.
She should be the last boss of the last DLC of Monster Hunter World. I swear to God.
Yeah.
Put your money where your mouth is, Capcom. Make the handler the last boss. She's evil. She's awful. She's the
Yeah.
worst monster in the whole game.
Yeah.
It's what the whole thing is about.
I really just wish she just brought if she brought a weapon, I'd probably be fine with like 75% of what she does
I
because
wish she'd
she's
bring a muzzle.
and ooh, yeah. Speaking of quality of writing, jumping from
God.
Monster Hunter World, where
Oh,
it's like
yeah,
anime-esque dialogue, where like
dude.
well,
I think
anime
50%, at
it's
least 50%
yeah.
of the dialogue in that game is from the handler self.
Yeah, like I say anime as dialogue, but like when you watch anime in Japanese, it feels natural. When you watch it in English, you're like, something about this doesn't feel right. I don't know what it is, but it just doesn't feel right to
I
me.
right.
But
I mean, I don't speak Japanese, but a lot of the anime. That's a cliche
yeah,
for video games, especially too. It's like the writing is just always bad,
yeah,
and like Ubisoft is terrible, and but
but no,
but yeah,
but no, it's like I was expecting like JRPG levels of writing, which is never good. Like, I mean,
yeah, right.
the themes could be great, but the overall like dialogue and everything and the character
Well, I would
interaction,
say Monster Hunter World is like JRPG
yeah.
writing, or do you think
What,
like comparable anyway, or is that
wait, what is?
Monster Hunter World?
No, that's definitely JRPG writing.
Yeah, yeah,
But
that's
like,
what I mean.
yeah, and I was saying like, yeah, I was totally expecting that from this game, but then everyone started talking like human beings, and I was like, what happened? Like,
Yeah, yeah, right.
where's my cheesy JRPG dialogue? I don't want it back, but where'd it go? Like,
Well, my only counterpoint to that is like, don't you feel the
I know,
to
yeah,
see?
but like, see, he says that, and then Cloud has a realistic
Yeah,
reaction to it.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm
You're
like,
right.
okay,
Yeah.
perfect. That's all. Like,
He's like,
he's like,
don't
he's
you
like,
know the planet bleeds green like you be bleed red?
he's like, he's like, get help. I'm like, all right,
Like,
we're good.
thanks, Barrett. You little,
Barrett is probably the most cartoonish character in the entire
yeah,
game.
he's the one that's
Along with
keeping
one,
the anime
yeah,
alive.
along with one guy who shows up. Where you're like, okay, he's full blown anime. But for the most part, character interaction and dialogue feels like conversation, not like. I guess there's some tones of that, like JRPG dramaticism to it, but like for the most part, when people are talking, I'm not like rolling my eyes at how they're talking.
Well,
Like
also
the fact,
Cloud. I mean,
yeah, the fact that people cuss so often in this game makes it feel
yeah,
real.
that's pretty surprising.
Like I don't put a lot of cuss words in my own writing just because like it never crosses my mind, but like
Hmm.
most people do when they talk. I do it all the
Hmm.
time. So when people are talking in this game and like some random Vespa is like shit,
Yeah.
I'm like yeah, okay, perfect.
In the words of Patton, um, uh, every good leader needs profanity, but you need the right kind of profanity,
Yeah,
a strategic kind of profanity. A
yeah.
good leader without the right strategic kind of profanity couldn't fight his way out of a piss-soaked paper bag.
That's great.
So,
But yeah,
yeah.
for me, like I'm just playing it and then people are talking. I'm like, man, I'm actually interested in what you have to say now because you're not just a character stereotype.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, right. Get your feet.
Can't you feel the planet bleed?
Get your feet bleeding. That's gonna be a meme forever. I feel like
I
that's
know,
gonna be around
but
forever.
like the fact that both Cloud and Jesse in that moment are like,
Well, it's not even honestly, it's not even the writing necessarily. It's how Barrett's physical reaction is like doing that kind of anime thing where he's
oh,
like,
there is a yeah,
he's just this huge,
huge
huge
man.
physical
Yeah,
reaction. It's like, can't you feel the pain
yeah.
bleeding?
There is a lot of that. I'm not gonna lie, but
Yeah, yeah, but that's
the actual
being
dialogue lines themselves, I feel like are really good. Like
sure, yeah,
yeah, and again, it carries over what Final Fantasy 15 did with its character interaction, especially out of combat and in combat. Like
they just
when
talk
you
at
switch,
you or
yeah, when you switch characters, it's like I'm passing the baton on to you, or like handle this for me, or I can't handle it right now. You take over. Like
yeah.
just little things like that. They didn't have to put that in there, but they did, and
Oh, sure, yeah.
it just makes really. And then when you, depending how well you did in the fight, characters will have different reactions. Or like
Oh, that's true.
yeah, like if you whoop some ass, Barrett just hums the freaking victory theme.
Yeah, I think I heard that.
Yeah,
That's,
I'm like,
good.
oh my god, that's hilarious. But if you get your ass kicked, he's like, oh god, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
And then yeah, like things like that are really cool. And then like whenever you run into combat, they'll say different things to each other depending. Like when Claude and Aerith jump into battle,
Yeah.
he'll say like, "Stay behind me," and she's like, "Yeah, so I can cover your back." I'm like, "Cool." And then
It's like, shut up, Eric.
Sean, God, what do you know? God?
God,
And then
what
she
do you
throws a
know?
lightning bolt. I'm like, "Cool, fine, I guess." God.
Oh, lightning bolt, a magic missile. Yeah, no, So like honestly, and maybe this is not the right way to think about this, but my feeling is that this is the closest thing to an actual Kingdom Hearts 3 that I want.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And that's because like what you were talking about, even the fact that it's even a little bit more grown up, the cussing is like I don't like I think I said it back when I was playing Kingdom Hearts 3. I was like, dude, I just think I outgrew this. And I don't mean to be offensive. I just mean that it's just not
Not
like
again.
l-
For me, like 85% of Kingdom Hearts is too childish for me. It's
yeah,
that fifteen
right.
percent that's the melancholy and like original story
Oh yeah,
that I
yeah,
play it
yeah.
for.
And
Everything
dude,
else
I'm a
though, I'm like,
huge
eh.
right, right. But you know what looks so attractive to me about King or about the this Final Fantasy VII remake is that it seems to capture that exactly that melancholy kind of thing
Yeah.
with the I don't know, it seems like much more my speed in terms of capturing nostalgia, stakes,
Well,
like it,
it's also goofy too. Like it's an adult sort of goofiness. Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, like so again, it gives me the PS1 90s era vibes when I'm playing it, but in a modern sense, where I'm like, when I'm playing it, I'm like, yes, this feels unique and like soulful to me. It sounds really gay, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, but like, yeah, that sounds really like emotional on my part, but like, it feels like there's something here that I wouldn't find in another game. That like, it's not like I'm playing Far Cry, and then I play, uh, let's say Call of Duty, and I'm not gonna say the gunplay in those games is exactly the same because that's no, it's not exactly the same, but it just feels the same to me for some reason.
Yeah.
Like and like both just feel like eh, like, like maybe I just don't like shooters. That could be the issue. But then I love Halo, so I'm not really sure what this is happening with. But like when I'm playing this game, I'm like I will only have this sort of emotion and experience with this game alone. Nothing else is gonna evoke anything like this, nor do I want it to, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair.
Like,
Well,
and that could
no,
just be me being a crotchety, like, like don't copy things kind of guy. But yeah,
well, there definitely are I can appreciate what you're saying, I guess. Like the Call of Duty example is perfect in that no matter what you think of Call of Duty, like it's fun, dude. Don't
mm-hmm.
get me wrong, I love it. I
Yeah,
just downloaded Warzone and
mm-hmm.
I've been playing it with a buddy, and it's like it's doable, man. Free play, cool, refined, like beautiful, but at the same time, just you can see the amount of like the raw value of Call of Duty is ones and zeros of like refining the minute to minute action and just giving you this sensory overload.
Yeah,
It's just guns and recoil and aftershock, and like it does what it does really well and gives you that kind of like addictive high part of it. But in terms of the refined experience, like it's not on the same wavelength, right? It's not on the same level, and I'm looking for a more refined, detailed kind of experience. I just that's the difference between me and my buddy who plays battle royales a lot. Like
yeah. I can't play battle royales because
I
the
can't do it, dude. Yeah,
yeah
I'm just not like it's not my speed, and I'm
yeah.
not. I
Maybe
need something more.
it's like again, it's that whole thing where yes, there's different skins and different like some elements of the battle royale that are different when you play them, but they still all do the same thing. Like,
Yeah, right.
yeah, like, and for me, it's just like that doesn't feel unique to me as much as it should. Like, I want to play a
Even
game and be like, this game is the only game that will give me this experience. And
yeah, right.
it's been God knows how many years since I've had just that happen to me, where I'm like, I will only ever feel these emotions from this game in this way. Like, and I want it to be that way. I don't want it
Mm.
to be when I'm playing a game, I can predict the story the moment someone says this one thing. Like, I don't want that to happen. Like, uh, Dragon Age Inquisition kills me with
Yeah.
that, where I'm like, things happen, and I'm like, this is probably gonna happen in like 3 hours. 3 hours later, it happens to a T in how I imagined it.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
Like, and I hate that predictability in modern storytelling. So,
Don't even
and
get me
it's a
started.
game that I should know like the back of my hand that is doing this to me again. Like
Mm.
I've experienced this game already in its older form, and for some reason the remake has given me more like in that aspect than newer games today. I
Yeah.
think Resident Evil 2 came close to doing that. It was more just like I was never super invested in the story of Resident Evil 2, so it didn't hit me as hard, I guess, when I was playing it.
Bro.
But when I was playing it, I was like, man,
You
this
know what is gonna
is
kick you in the
really
teeth
good.
though, dude?
Resident Evil 3.
Oh, sorry. No, did you hear the news?
Oh, Resident Evil 4.
Resident Evil 4 greenlit by Capcom
I'm
remake.
for some odd reason I'm kind of like, do they need to do that?
Dude,
Like,
I even if the only difference was the simple difference was that they upres Resident Evil 4 into the RE engine, to the
oh
new
yeah,
RE
yeah, yeah.
engine, that is plenty. You
Oh
know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
But at the same time, the team is two for two. Like I know there's some criticisms about RE3 for its 5 hour length, but in terms of its dedication to like remaking the game, it did just as good a job, hope like you'd say, as like Resident Evil 2. It came out a year apart. Like it should have been a DLC probably. Like I agree with that.
yeah.
I think
The original Resident Evil 3 Nemesis was super short too, so it's not like they had a
yeah.
crap ton to work with. So
Yeah, right.
yeah,
And I think it was an error of the source material, not of the shit.
yeah,
But yeah, dude, it like especially after Resident Evil 2 because I loved it and thought it was great. Um, I want to see this team do what they want to do, and Resident Evil 4, like, come on, man,
oh man, I
that
think
could be
again
fun,
they don't really need to do much to change up Resident Evil
dude.
4. They just got to
Yeah,
change the graphics at this point because Resident Evil
yeah,
4 plays like Resident Evil 2 already.
yeah, yeah.
like,
Basically,
like, like
right,
what
right.
what do they need to change? Then that's gonna like that's what confuses me the most. Like at this point, you could just get away with changing the graphics and
Well,
that's
like,
it.
dude, and honestly, man, change. I want to like
Maybe
change what you
Ashley's
want to
now.
change, but
Maybe
shit.
Ashley's invincible now, and you don't
Yeah,
have to deal with her.
maybe fix Ashley to start.
Yeah,
That'd be the
but
priority number one. Is
or
just
make it more horror themed because the actual game itself is more actiony. I think
yeah,
it
yeah,
didn't
that's
go.
fair.
It didn't go full blown action until 5 and 6, but like
There's plenty of opportunities to go dark, though.
yeah,
It's like I think part of what makes it not so like even the textures alone could make a big difference in
yeah,
Resident Evil 4. Like
true.
you give Gigante, just some El Gigante a little bit
Dude,
or I mean not even him, dude. He's not like the scariest guy. Like
yeah. If they
uh,
remake Resident Evil 5, though, I can only imagine the headlines from that.
oh no,
Remember when it first came out?
I'm sure they would stop. I can't imagine they would do Resident Evil 5.
Yeah, only because the controversy it would introduce. This is like
Yeah,
more like the non-controversy it would introduce. I'm not gonna call it controversy because it's not. You're in Africa shooting African zombies. It's the same as if you were shooting white zombies in
yeah,
like
yeah.
Norwegian like countries.
It's
Yeah, but
yeah, it's like yeah.
it just makes me laugh that was that for some reason that was just the thing. I was like, you can never remake that now, like not in today's climate. But I'm not gonna
Yeah.
delve into that aspect of life
Oh
right
no,
now. Yeah,
dude. Yeah,
but
no,
yeah,
for sure though.
but yeah,
Well, it was exactly no. You're totally right though. It's like why, why are all these? I don't know. Never mind.
yeah,
I can't-
but yeah,
it's just a strange. You're right. It's a strange world we live in.
yeah. But
But
yeah,
at the same time though, like much more. Apparently though, I do not want them to remake Resident Evil 5. Like
yeah.
it was not
No,
anything
yeah. Plus
nearly.
Resident Evil 5, its story was whatever, but like as a co-op experience, really fun actually.
She's like, oh yeah,
Yeah, me and my brother had a ton of fun playing through that together.
well, it
But like
doesn't
again,
have a. Sorry.
yeah, its story is whatever. Who cares? But like,
No, no, no. It just doesn't have a great reputation, but I didn't actually play through it.
well,
So,
it doesn't have a
that's
great
all.
reputation because again, they always compare it to the older games. Like 4 still had elements of horror to it, so and it was just a tight made game with like it was actiony when it needed to be, but horror when it needed to be. So it
Yeah.
balanced it out really well. 5 went full action for the most part, where all you were doing is fighting hordes of zombies over and over and over again. And I think that's also criticism of 3 or the RE3 remake as well.
Yeah.
But like people didn't really like that, and 6 did it even more. So people didn't really didn't like that. So that's when like they just started remaking them and made 7. Whereas like yeah, 7 is just full horror again. So here we are. But then like
Yeah.
I just don't want Capcom to slip into that thing where like they keep on ramping up the action with each installment because stop. Like they know at this point what works the most. It's your slower, tenser horror games like RE7, RE2 remake.
Well, I love the direction Capcom is going.
Yeah,
And if Homeboy makes a Dragon's
Dogma
Dogma
2.
2, I will shit my pants
I
in excited anticipation.
still gotta
That
finish
needs to
streaming it again.
happen. Okay, and so think about this. The guy who directed, didn't you tell me this? I hope this is right, but the guy who directed Devil May Cry
5.
5 is the guy who directed Dragon's Dogma. Is
Yeah, because
that true?
he's the original developer of director of Devil May Cry. So
Okay.
yeah, I think
Okay.
he wanted to make Devil May Cry 5 first, and now what the
Dude.
rumors say is that he's working on Dragon's Dogma 2.
Oh, dude, don't tell me that, man.
I know. We can
I
only
just
hope.
God, because well, like I was watching this like top 10 RPGs list because I'm again just bored stuck in my house. And, but like it was just talking about how like say what you will about Dragon's Dogma and how like I think it in terms of if I was gonna like actually analyze and review Dragon's Dogma I wouldn't give it a 10, that's for sure, but
Oh no.
at the same time there is nothing quite like Dragon's Dogma.
I would give
Like
that game.
literally nothing else
Yeah,
compares
I would give that
in
game a
many ways.
solid 7, but it's a 7 that
Yeah,
I
but
deeply
the
enjoy.
most beautiful artistic 7 of all. It's the
It's Vivaldi text 7. It's
yeah, right. That's a we'll coach you on that, Grid. It's a Vivaldi 7.
yeah.
No, dude, no, for sure though. I again, man, literally the perfect game is like Skyrim, but with the gameplay of Dragon's Dogma. You know what I mean?
And
To
maybe
me,
the
anyway. Like,
writing of a better story, because let's be
right.
honest, the writing of
Maybe
Skyrim is
we should throw more spice
yeah.
into
Like
that cauldron. I
let's have
think
let's have like the environmental storytelling of Skyrim, which is actually really well done in certain points.
yeah,
I do enjoy that.
I
Yeah, but
maybe we'll sorry.
yeah, but its environmental storytelling and book storytelling is way better than its actual stories. It's just
Yeah.
hilarious. Maybe
Oh
have
god.
that with Dragon's Dogma Combat, and then a story written
Dude.
by someone who knows how to write a
If the
fulfilling
story could
story.
look anything like The Witcher 3, right?
Oh,
And the
dude.
combat looked like Dragon's Dogma, and maybe you just stole a couple other of your favorite sort of significant details from other games, like
It's so weird.
yeah.
I keep wanting to steal things from games that aren't Final Fantasy VII. Is that weird? I'm like, I don't want any game that you made that's like Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
It's just so weird to me that I'm like, yeah, no game needs to be made like this unless it's another like Final Fantasy game. Like, I just want other games to have the elements of different other games, just not this one.
I earnestly don't think anybody could really compete on the Final Fantasy VII. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I'm trying to write this," if I'm trying to, I don't know, write or create or something or replicate the magic of that, it's kind
Yeah.
of like don't waste your breath, dude.
Because especially for me now that whenever I write something, that this game is gonna be in the back of my head, and it's probably gonna influence a few things, but I don't want it to be like me shamelessly copying it. Of
Yeah,
course, I've
sure.
already done that with Kingdom Hearts all the time when I'm writing, where it's like all my characters when they're first made are Sora, and then I just make them more depressed.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, like so, for me, it's I just want I don't know. I want more games of this caliber to come out, and maybe Cyberpunk later this year will do that. But like, I want just games to make me sound super like just emotional and like nonsensical. I want them to make me feel again. Like sometimes when I'm playing
Yeah,
a
I
game,
totally get you, man.
yeah. Sometimes when I'm playing a game, I'm like, whatever. Like this thing just happened. I know I should be emotional because they're writing for an emotional response, but I've already in my mind have gone through 10 ways that it didn't need to come to this. And in Final Fantasy VII, that doesn't happen as often. Maybe I'm just again I could be just entirely blinded by my own fanboy and nostalgia purposes, and someone else could tear it apart like I do everything else, and that's fine.
Well, can I
Yeah,
give you a counterpoint in a way to defend that, defend you in that way? Because I think we all do that, right? And like you're biased for sure because you love Final Fantasy VII and you always will. And there's a very special. It's like if you're a food critic and you walk into a restaurant, a Michelin star restaurant or something like that, and you have some predisposition to mac and cheese, like even if you're just the most dedicated, refined, special little food critic there ever was, and have the best regard and the highest esteem in the whole business, like you can't possibly deny or control the fact that you are affected by what your experience was, and like you can't deny too that whatever food you might have had as a child at some very special moment in your life isn't going to have some effect on like whether you like it, or whether it affects you. And so like, and I have the same in a different kind of game or a different experience. But what I realize about talking about these auteurs and like the people who make games are in a unique position. They're in some ways bigger and more boisterous than artists or writers because they're the closest I think we've ever come to this sort of kind of like god complex status where
yeah,
literally like Katase is the creator, is the manufacturer of life and death and worlds in this thing that matters so sincerely to a person like you or to so many people, thousands, millions all over the world who love Final Fantasy VII, right? And so the idea of it, like, that's where it just comes back to the point where, like, I don't think people like you and me, have any right to just like tell this guy how to do it. It's just more veneration and worship. It's more like just like you choose these artists, these geniuses to not do you wrong, and that's what I mean. It's like it just gives you more hope. It's this idea that not necessarily you say you want more games like this to be made. It's like I'm just thankful that games like this can be made, and that
yeah.
that that it's potentially, hopefully,
It
something to look forward to. Not
yeah. It's like for
not
me, it's
only
one of
look
those.
like
Yeah, it's like one of those moments where I'm like, oh, okay, so next gen is here as this gen is about to end, because
yeah, yeah, I know, right?
jumping into like the quote unquote next gen games that were at the launch of this console cycle,
It
they,
happened
they
last time too, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
they just felt like like
Oh,
PS2 to PS3 was a significant jump. Like everything changed after that. From
yeah.
PS3 to PS4, it just felt like the games stayed the same. The graphics just got a little bit better.
That's true. That's a
Yeah,
good point.
and
Yeah.
yeah, for me, like when this game jumps into my life, I'm like, oh, so now we get something new and entirely like
Mm,
beat by beat, like makes me like have that experience that I would say is next gen, and it's
yeah.
coming in the tail end of this gen, and it's like, what happened? And maybe
Well, I
again,
guess.
maybe my
Yeah.
my view of the gaming sphere has just gotten more narrow as time has went on, but this is the first game that's actually been like, this feels like a game that we should have been having since the beginning of this gen.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
and
and the fact is, I think Nintendo continues to put everybody to shame by showing you simply that like graphics are such a small part of the pie,
yeah,
like and theoretically so many great games could exist on completely lower lower resolution, or sorry, lower fidelity
yeah.
like platforms and still be just as good. Like The Last of Us. What does The Last of Us lose? If you were to turn the fidelity down on The Last of Us, it's like the magic of The Last of Us really isn't um, you know,
The Last of Us is
what
a game
can
that's carried almost entirely by its story. Let's be
yeah,
real.
right.
Like,
Yeah, right, right, right. But like what you said yourself, the next gen argument. I want to be hopeful about this next gen compared to last next gen because I think it is a big jump.
yeah.
Like 12, 12 teraflops.
Like, oh my god.
Did you know that a supercomputer in the year 2001, right? A supercomputer, the best supercomputer in the world, could produce a whopping 1 teraflop of power. Would you like to know how much that supercomputer in 2001 sold for?
How much?
You want to know? $50 million in 2001 money.
Oh
You know
my
what I mean?
god.
Like $50 million for a teraflop of power, and we have 12 in every house coming in the fall. So
Welcome to
I'm
the
hoping
future.
we're on the cusp. I'm hoping we're on the cusp of a really big, dramatic next gen shift. Hopefully,
Yeah, I just
but
again like I feel like the PS3 and PS4 era had been defined by publishers, not developers. If that makes any sense
yeah.
at all.
Oh, no, no, no,
Yeah,
totally, dude.
like,
Yeah,
and
no,
it's
totally.
because of that, like everything just feels so samey, and like it
Yep.
it wore on me so much in the PS3 era that as soon as we jumped into the PS4, I just almost stopped playing games entirely, especially after Destiny. That like I just started playing on my PC. I was like I could just
Yeah.
play indie games
Why, dude? Honestly, man,
and mod
it's like
Skyrim for the 20th time, but
what we're seeing too is like I think it has a lot to do with just the way we I think the structural laws that allow companies to finance how they do business. Because if you notice in the Japanese companies and or the Eastern companies in general and the European companies tend to have like control, for instance, game of the year last year, European company, high praise in the market, even if it's like I don't know, I thought it was a pretty good game. Didn't I didn't it wasn't like transcendental to me, but I think it deserved game of the year given the competition because the competition just wasn't that great,
yeah,
right? And it's just like you have all these Western American companies that just get overridden by like look at EA, look at the pork barrel clusterfuck that like Bethesda, EA are doing right now. Like Anthem clusterfuck,
wow, that
Battlefield
yeah,
5 clusterfuck,
oh my god,
everything Ubisoft makes.
is meh. You there? I think you cut out. Oop, we're having audio difficulties. It's like
And
yo.
with a bunch of intricate, awesome details, great graphics, great engine, all that stuff. And
So
like,
so
what's up?
you cut out for a solid 15 seconds.
Oh, I did.
Yeah,
Oh, fuck. Shit,
yeah.
man, that was a good rant.
I know, right? It sounded really awesome
Uh,
too.
well, oh well.
But yeah, I was really confused. Like, what happened?
Well, I guess that really what I could sum up just by saying that I want, it seems like a lot of the European devs and the Japanese devs are coming into a renaissance. Like they're really doing well. They're just like smoking it.
Yeah, and yeah, that is
And
super sad. I just realized there's no American company right now that's like killing it.
that's
In
what I mean, dude. That's right. And so it's like, why, man? There's so much talent. Like, I mean, Rock, I guess, but even then, Rockstar is a British company. Let's see. Um, God of War, Sony Santa Monica. So like,
okay,
Sony's doing okay, but still, like, falling far short. That's for sure. Like, AAA doesn't mean jack shit when you have
AAA
indie
means
games coming out.
yeah, AAA means disappointing. Like
Yeah, I know, man. It
that's
means
I
underfunded.
yeah.
That's what it means.
I
Like,
sound super snobbish saying that, but like every time I hear AAA, I'm like, oh, so it's not that good.
that's what I mean. Yeah, yeah, right. AAA. Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Is a IOU. You know what I mean? Like AAA game means it'll be ready after we've sold it and only after 3 years of updates.
yeah,
You know, because that's basically where we're coming up on, dude. Battlefield 5 is going to come up on like its third year
yeah,
before it actually gets the updates it needs to be a complete game. And
yeah.
you're like,
Oh
do you see why this is a fucked up system?
my
Do you
god,
see why this is broken?
yeah. And I think a
Like
lot.
Battlefront 2 is just getting good just now, and you're like, too little, too late, assholes.
Yeah,
Like,
I think hopefully that people are starting to realize this, and more focused games are coming out. Uh, Jedi Fallen Order. It again,
yeah, right.
I wouldn't say it's super focused because it borrows systems from a bunch of different games, but like it condensed itself down to a single player story, and that's all it was.
Yeah.
And it did really well because of that. Like because it focused on one thing and did it really well. And I think that's a problem with AAA titles nowadays is that they just go too big for no reason.
Yeah.
Like I would have enjoyed Dragon Age Inquisition if I wasn't saving the world. Like
Yeah,
if I
exactly.
wasn't saving the world in Dragon Age Inquisition, I was just living a kind of like focused story of a small party who's dealing with a smaller threat, but it's more intrigue and like manipulation there, I would enjoy that game probably 100 times more than. Oh hey, did you see that crack in the sky? By the way, I know there's demons coming out of it, but you need to help me find my cows. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what am I doing here? And like,
Well, they always, again, man, they never spend any money on the writing, and the writing is always
or they do spend.
trash.
It's like funny because like these are games that are defined by their writing. As much as people want to say that like in an RPG, sometimes writing doesn't matter, which is a silly premise, by the way. But like,
Yeah, yeah,
like,
that's your recipe for, uh, and Oblivion NPC dialogue.
oh god,
You know what I mean? That's
stop!
saying that
You
writing doesn't matter is how that happens.
you've broken the law. How do you plead? It's like, dude, I picked up a coin off the street. What do you want from me?
You can a bandit will come and says your coin or your life, and you can give him 100 gold, and the second he turns around, you just hit the crouch button and you pickpocket him.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Take it, I didn't want it anyway."
My favorite thing to do in Skyrim is steal all the guards' arrows, and then
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
kick a chicken, and then all of them would have 20 arrows again. Because
Oh
they were
yeah,
just like,
dude.
oh yeah, you think you could just I'm like, okay, thanks.
Oh yeah, no, I'd rig the game. I'd punch a guard, which only if you punch him and you don't kill him, you literally just attack him empty-handed. It just charges you 50 gold, which is inconsequential after, you know, levels in the game.
Yeah.
And so what they do is it was like a Sun Tzu thing where you just run away in the market district and they just shoot arrow after arrow after arrow. Every arrow that hits you goes straight into your inventory. Um,
Yep.
so like they wouldn't be doing enough damage to kill you, and so you just absorb about 100 arrows and steel arrows, which are pretty good, and
Yeah.
then you can sell them for more money. And then what you do is after you were done, if you were ran out of health or whatever, you just paid off your bounty, 50 gold, no big deal, and you were good.
Yeah. But yeah, oh man, what kills me is like I love that video game like just on like that totally just unrealistic look on things with video games. Don't get me wrong, I love that too. It just that defines my life. Like I would love that just to happen in my life, but like I also want just games that are like Final Fantasy VII Remake, where it's just a tight, cohesive experience that
Yeah.
I can play and super enjoy for the 3 days straight that I would play it, and I'll put it down and I might play it, but and again in like 6 months. But in that 6 months, that game will still be in my memory because of what it did right.
Yeah, no, I guess, man.
And like, I don't think again, not every game needs to be Final Fantasy VII Remake. Not every game needs to be Skyrim, but every game I think should aim for that same type of impressionability on somebody. And sometimes I feel like modern games are they just want like they want to like fulfill the most shallowest
Yeah.
form of dopamine release where it's like yeah you feel good for 2 seconds and we're good. like why does Dark Souls, Sekiro, and that whole like mentality of
I'm
gaming
hoping.
last for so long? And that's only because you are you're getting invested because of what you're doing
The
within the
trust.
game. Yeah. Oh, I think he's cut out for another 15 seconds. Hold on.
Yeah, you there?
Yes. Yeah, I think you cut out again for some reason.
Oh yeah, sorry, man. Yeah,
All
that's
good?
weird.
But yeah, that's all good. Oh, well, at least it came at the end. Well, all the interesting stuff was in the middle.
Yep.
But yeah, it's hopefully Elden Ring. I think you're about to mention that. And hopefully Elden
Dude,
Ring brings that out.
I don't even want to bring it up because I'm just
Dude,
ramping myself up to get heartbroken
yeah,
again.
you have got to do what I do and just smoke screen yourself so hard in a game that the moment it comes out, you're like, oh, holy shit, it's out. Like,
I know. I just like the problem is too though. I feel like I get burned a lot at the same time because we've talked about it a
same.
million times. I'm still on the prowl for my game.
Yeah.
The game to end all games, the one that just does it, tops me off. Like I've got hundreds of hours in Dark Souls 3. I've got at this point hundreds of hours in Sekiro. Uh, But like at the same time, eventually, like I just am not going to return to those after. Like it's not. There's no scenario where I can just keep playing them or just like I've experienced everything there is to experience for the most part in Sekiro. Like I just don't see how getting the platinum trophy or beating Ishina on New Game Plus 7 as opposed to New Game Plus 4 is any different. What's the difference? Like I don't feel like playing through that game that many times. I would have preferred DLC, but I don't think they're going to make any. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. Like I just even then there was something so small and so subtle missing from those games. Dark Souls 3 less, I think. Like I love that game and I always will, but I just it's like I don't know. It's hard to explain.
Okay.
It's like it doesn't in this what you describe about it speaking to you and being what you always wanted it to be and stuff like that. Like I have not experienced that.
Yeah, and yeah,
You know.
for the longest time, I think it's always been the stories of video games that coming out. Like a buddy of mine who just says like that I'm probably just too critical of things, and maybe I am, but like anything story wise nowadays has been just so dull.
Oh
Like
my god, yeah,
it's
man.
been
People give Horizon Zero Dawn credit and say it's written well, and I'm like, dude, what are you talking
I was
about?
like, what have you read in the past like five like I can find in my book collection, of which is just random stuff I would buy in the bookstore,
Oh yeah, dude.
and just find books that tell stories that are way better than anything in a video game. And for the longest time, I was like, no, yeah, video game stories are just as good as books and movies. Now they're probably just as good as movies because movie stories nowadays are terrible. So that's also
Yeah,
that.
true.
But as compared to like, and even books nowadays suck. So I guess like
Yeah.
everything
Yeah,
sucks. But like,
everything sucks.
but yeah, like so for me, it's just like, or maybe I'm just looking in all the wrong places. That could just be me.
No,
But
dude. Well, hey man, I actually just watched the second episode of Mandalorian, which can
nice.
be the theme for another episode. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I want to talk to you about it because I'm so far just kind of meh, and
No,
I
it's
don't want to be a dick, but it's like I just,
so
I
yeah.
just,
I
I
w-
can't explain it other than I just couldn't give a fuck. I
no,
just don't.
that is entirely fair, dude. Because as soon as I was done watching it, I enjoyed it super. I really enjoyed it as I was watching it. But
Yeah,
after I finished it, it slipped from my mind. Like
yeah.
it
Like
just
it,
gone. Like I don't know.
it just, it just seems like a ham-fisted string of scenes of just like Western style kind of like. Well, now he's in this.
Yeah.
Well, here are some monsters that appeared. Oh, these are the frog horses, by the way, in this Shane allegory.
If I want to get
you know,
yeah, if I want to
like
get really like really nerdy about it, it's like a really predictable D&D campaign.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then they go.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not trying to be a dick. I again, if the whole point of the writing is to make you care, if that was the only single objective that the writing was supposed to accomplish, they failed.
Yeah.
you know, like and that's the problem with so many modern video games. Like I think I'm sure Horizon Zero Dawn is a great video game and a fun, like complete, authentic, great video game. But it's written poorly enough to the point of not only do I not care, I anti-care.
Yeah.
I want Alloy to shut up, and I kind of want her to just get eaten by the robot because it
Yeah.
just doesn't make any sense to me that this tribal human society can just can just fend off the robot tyrannosaur. Like, no big deal, man. We got this.
Yeah, it's like we have nothing about technology, but we can make you this sick shock bow.
with his with this awesome string bow and the power of faith alone,
We shall
I
wreck
will
everything.
I will conquer the machine overlords. It's like
Yeah.
that's not how Neo did it. I don't think it's how you're gonna make it happen.
I think yeah. So that's like yeah, just a huge thing for me nowadays. Where like everything with a story, just it's either it
Blows
ranges from
chunks, dude.
it's
Oh my god.
it's bad to mediocre is the range of stories I've been seeing so far.
Yeah,
And again,
that's
I could just be looking at the wrong things, but like
no.
I just feel like every day, everything I look at nowadays, aside from your book, and this is not a shameless plug, a like shameless plug for your book, but like when I was reading your book, again, as I left in that review when I mentioned it, was like passion is palpable. Like when I'm reading something, when I'm looking at something, I want the passion to be so strong it pulls me into the world. Like I want the story that's being told to me to
Right, dude.
just grab me and rip me from my current state of being and put me in the mindset of whoever's writing it. And I just haven't had that since your book and like in video games in forever until now. So you there? I think you cut out again.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Greer?
Yeah, you there?
Sorry, I think you got desynced again.
God dang it. Yeah, I was basically gushing about your book, so.
Oh, okay, good. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I see a lot in video games like Ubisoft. Again, the writing is horrific in Ubisoft games, and there is no. I don't care. I don't care what anybody says. There's no defense um, of like how bad the Division 2's writing is, and how bad Assassin's Creed Odyssey's writing is, and Watch Dogs. Oh my god. And same goes for freaking uh, Wildlands, dude. It's like I don't know. It's just, and the reason it's so bad is because it just doesn't feel like the author themselves, whoever wrote it. It feels like somebody was told to write something. It's like as if it were their job,
yeah.
and there's just no passion at all in it. And it's like I get, I get that that's what this is that you have to, but
Well,
when you're playing a Witcher side quest,
yeah.
there's love in the
Well,
subtext. You know what I
many
mean? It's
writers
crazy.
did The Witcher 3 have?
That's a good question. Yeah, I should probably look that up.
Yeah,
I don't know.
really, because I feel like a large problem with anything nowadays is just bloat, especially
Yeah.
writing teams. Like, don't even get me started on music writing. Like, why do you need 8 people to dictate this man? Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
baby, no.
yeah. It's like, ooh, why did you need 8 people for that? And I feel like that's what happens when you have too many cooks in the kitchen, and that's a huge problem we have nowadays because
Yeah, right, dude.
we
Yeah.
keep having these. For MMOs, I understand because you want teams of writers to work on different, story quests you can do within the games, and
Yeah.
it's a large world, so you should have that. But
What's the hard?
if it's
It's
if
the
it's a
balance, though.
yeah, if it's a main scenario, I just want one guy. Like Final Fantasy VII is written by one guy. I forgot his full name, but I think his last name is Nojima. He's scenario and story writer.
Yeah.
And you can tell that it's one vision because it's entirely cohesive, and it sticks to what it's doing. Unlike, I feel like Western developers, at least the United States developers, have huge teams of writers, which is just sad. Like, I don't think you need that many writers.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know. It's kind of, it's always going to be a gamble, right? Because even trusting the one guy isn't always going to get you there. Like Brian Johnson is a perfect example, right? Where it's like, you trust the one guy and he might do the thing that doesn't satisfy cohesion or doesn't satisfy the norm or something like that. But then at the same time, my criticism of the next movie of Rise of Skywalker is that it doesn't, at least at the very least with Ryan Johnson, is it made a decision, right? And was like, I think it was cohesive to a bad theme, right? So the theme tainted the rest of it, whereas like the Rise of Skywalker is just an amalgam of just
it's like
shenanigans.
the most shallow form of fan service.
Yeah, right. And it just doesn't make any sense
because the Last Jedi,
no cohesion.
Because the Last Jedi exists, though, all that fan service has been tainted. So it's like,
I think it ruined. I think the Mandalorian is bad in my mind because I think it taught me to hate Star Wars. I think I just don't, which is so sad.
Yeah. I can probably watch. I can probably watch the
punching me in the face right now.
I can probably watch the OT and still super appreciate it. Honestly.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But but this the prequels I can laugh at and enjoy the overall like what he was trying to do. But even though he did it really poorly, I can enjoy that.
Yeah.
But like anything past this point, it's probably gonna be tainted by the sequels.
Well, I was talking to my brother-in-law about it, and it's just funny because this is something that people have tattoos about, and not just people. Like, I bet you the most common tattoo on the planet, besides maybe a cross, would be a Star Wars tattoo.
Yep.
You know, like that's a huge common thread of pop culture religion at this point. But the problem is, if it's gonna be pop culture religion, it has to have like, in my mind, the philosophical chops to back it up.
Yep.
It's like it's not it's like simple, but
Well,
the
see,
idea is that none of the new Star Wars canon has convinced me in any way that
like
they're playing any kind of philosophical
I
games.
think
Like
yeah, I
they're
think the problem with series nowadays is that everyone wants to go bigger. They don't want to go smaller and more nuanced. And I
yeah.
think that's the huge part of like
Dude, look at Logan. You
yeah.
know, just as an example, because a smaller ball version of that, Hugh Jackman is, I was about to call him Jack Human. Hugh Jackman is Wolverine in the first three X-Men movies, right?
Hmm.
He goes on to play Wolverine like 6 times or however many, and just beats that horse to death in varying amounts of stakes, right? In X-Men 3, it was like the whole world was at stake, and or I mean, he's in the city and it's crazy. Like goes through a lot of pain and shit like that. But then in Logan, which another ironically I mentioned that allegory for Shane. Logan, boom, uh, is Shane, and it's so small, right? It's like everything that you're focusing on is so minute compared to the big grandiose spectacle of like all the core X-Men trilogy and every movie that Hugh Jackman is or that his Wolverine has ever been. Nuanced, moment in the Logan saga. It hits so much harder, so much harder than the risk of the whole world going up in a blaze.
Yeah.
And it's like, man,
Because like I for one would enjoy something like The Mandalorian, but more again nuanced into like I want people to get philosophical with the Force. Like I know I already have that in the form of the Sith Lords. That's like Knights of the Republic 2 is the Sith Lords, where like they explore all philosophical aspects of the Force and play on each other depending on that and how
yeah,
like your mental state can affect that. And it's for me what I wanted the Last Jedi to be. I thought when people were saying it was subverting expectations, I thought that's what they meant because I played that game, and then I
yeah,
watched the Last Jedi and I was like, oh man, why? And like you
yeah,
aren't challenging anything. You're just trying to inject your own worldview of what you have interpreted to be as that. You're not taking outside influence from the actual philosophical like basis for
right,
these
right.
beliefs. And
You're framing your logic around the thing,
yeah,
not the other way around. Like, the difference between Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy 15 is pretty staggering if you put those two together.
yeah,
Like, the inherent logic in Final Fantasy always tracks because there's a very desperate and deliberate labor of like, hey, this is what this area looks like. These pipes connect to these things because of this particular function, right? And it doesn't fit perfectly always, but it's consistent in style, theme, and logic. Whereas like there's a couple times in Final Fantasy 15 I saw in a video, it was a analysis talking about how like, it's very simple and subtle and small, but like, have you ever noticed how there are these giant ass monsters that are roaming around the wilds in Final Fantasy 15 all the time?
yep.
Like, there's no guards against the road at all. So like, if a monster just walks in front of the road, you know,
Which happens.
traffic comes to a stop completely. Like, so in terms of just the core logic, right? If you're designing this world,
Oh, it's called verisimilitude.
yeah, right, verisimilitude, yeah.
Yeah.
And so like, but another example is that there's no walls around the cities. There's no like, there's no police cars, or there's no another example is in like Skyrim, you'll never find a bathroom in Skyrim,
Oh God.
right? And the reason you'll never find a bathroom in Skyrim is because it just, I don't know, did it slip the designer's mind? Did they think it wasn't relevant to the story or to the immersion? Like, I don't know, but the idea is that if you miss one of those logical blocks, like I think it has a compounding effect. Like, I think eventually, people, it doesn't, it's like that Family Guy joke where he's like at the Peter Pan play for his kids. It's like the immersion is broken. I'm very aware that I'm gonna play right now. It's like, That's what it feels like. It's like I'm just very aware that this is a video game. When two guys wearing the exact same outfit, just in different color schemes, walk into the diner in Final Fantasy 15, you're like, well, fuck, man. Like,
I
you know?
I can't say Final Fantasy VII Remake doesn't have that happen. It just
Oh
happens a lot less.
yeah, right. But
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Y-
I'm just trying
Yeah,
to make a
yeah,
point. It's like,
because like sometimes they're like, "What the hell?" Like, a little more effort, guys. And yeah,
no,
again, yeah. So yeah, especially like with Final Fantasy VII Remake, again, yeah, what you're saying is correct in that everything here makes meticulous sense within the context of the world, and it's these details that drive the core part of the world too. Like what drives the plot of Final Fantasy 15 isn't necessarily the details of the world; it's the overarching plot of like kingdoms overthrowing one another.
yeah,
Like
that's true.
it's not like this is happening because of how the city was structured. It's I'm just doing this because I want power, and I feel like that in itself makes it again. It does that whole large scale thing where you just feel so disconnected from it. You can't really get invested unless you're with the characters for a super long time, which you are.
Yeah.
I'll give it that. But what Seven does is it starts off with the bombing mission, which is in the grand scheme of like the world and everything like that, small scale. Granted, the explosion is huge and it has large ramifications everywhere, but it's still smaller than saving the world, but bigger than your average like killing goats, like kind of
Yeah.
like RPG questing. I think that there sets the tone really well, and like it establishes why you're doing this, what has happened within the world that has caused these situations to happen, like to come about. Like
Mhm.
the ebb and flow of everything makes much more sense than like 15 does, where it just happens. Like
Yeah.
the thing I laughed the most about was that like I watched Kingsguard, uh,
Kingswave.
Kingslave. Yeah, I watched Kingslave, which I thought was okay. Like I didn't mind it at all. Like, but then you play the game, and you go to sleep at a random inn, and it just shows you a slideshow of Kingsglaive in the matter of like 10 seconds, and those events have just happened. Like,
Right.
boom, your kingdom's gone. I'm like, what?
I was like, and there's no relationship with what's her face.
Luna, yeah, it's not very fleshed out. I think you cut out again.
I think
Oh,
thinking about the whole package and how they interact with each. Like on the one hand,
so
you have the whole game is about
1 second, dude. I think you cut out for about 5 seconds, or would start from the beginning. So
man.
yeah,
I
the
think that's
whole relationship with Luna wasn't very fleshed out.
yeah. Damn
Like
it, dude! Was on a brand. I was good. I
I
was
know,
doing.
but yeah. So I'm sorry, man.
That's all good. That's fine.
We gotta like figure out a
I don't
better
know.
setup somehow.
Yeah, no, I don't know whose issue this is, but anyway, man, it's been. I mean, we probably have.
Oh yeah, it's been like 2 hours. We've been going on for a
Yeah,
while. But I love Final Fantasy VII Remake. That's my
good
final
man.
thoughts. I hope
I'm
the rest of the game
I'm
delivers.
so happy for you. I'm jealous. I wish all of my childhood games get remade in such detail, but
One day, dude. One day.
I just want Elden Ring to smoke the tits off of my expectations. That'd be really cool.
Do it. Go in
I
with like
want,
go in with zero expectations. That's my
dude. You
advice.
play you play a game where I can feel like Sekiro in kind of like a Norse fantasy open world shenanigans. Like that's my dream jam. But
Nice, dude.
yeah, dude.
All right. So I think that's everything for today.
Yeah, man.
To whoever's listening to this, I hope you enjoyed my nonsensical rants about a video game for 2 hours. So all of you have a very good day, and I'll see you next time.
Deuce.
Bye.